Hi folks, this is Dustin Micheli, again with another edition of the Primate Report coming to you from Press Monkey Independent Media, where truth, activism, and bananas are our goal. A lot of truth, a lot of activism, you need those bananas for the energy. If you would like to support what we're doing, you can go to our link that I'll provide below for my GoFundMe account, our Press Monkey Media Startup Fund on GoFundMe. And we're going to start out, we're going to talk about some serious issues. We're going to talk about racism. For one, we need to talk about white people talking to you, the culmination of white privilege. We don't understand what people of color go through. We can't understand what it is to deal with the institutional racism that they deal with. Let me say something here about our justice system, okay? I'm going to be frank with you. Our justice system is three-tiered. One for the elite, one for the semi-regular people, and one for people of color. We all need to recognize that we as white people can't understand racism on the level that our friends, family members, and community members who are people of color do. We can talk to them about it. We can empathize with them about it. You know, we can extend our empathy and try to imagine what it is to be like, to go through these things. But we can't understand that. So you're going to be wrong. You're not going to understand. You never really will. But you can try, and you must. You must try to understand. For us to move forward as a society, we must deal with the issues that are facing us as a people, and one of the major ones, one of the major blemishes on the face of what we call democracy and liberty is the institutional and cultural blemish of racism. No matter how uncomfortable it is, people, no matter how on the defense it might make you feel, we've got to be ready to talk about it. Okay? So let's do that. Let's take that step forward. You know, reach out to your friends, reach out to your community members. Let's move forward as a people. We can do it, but we have to be ready to talk about it in a very sincere way and on very difficult issues. Nazis, one of the most common insults and or conflations that people tend to hurl at each other in any political circumstance, whether it's appropriate or not. In most cases, 99.9% of cases, it's not appropriate. Fascist is calling somebody a fascist, the same sort of thing. You know, it's like people will call Donald Trump a fascist. Now, do I think that Donald Trump has fascist tendencies? Yes, absolutely. He's an elitist. I think all elitists have fascist tendencies. I think that Hillary Clinton had fascist tendencies. I think the Democratic Party has fascist tendencies. I think the Republican Party has fascist tendencies. I think our clandestine intelligence agencies have fascist tendencies. So yes, you know, fascism is a prevalent thing in our culture. You know, Nazism is not. It's not so prevalent. I mean, there's a small minority of people who are bold enough to wear that swastika or SS symbol and what have you, and get out there and put themselves on a limb, and they're complete jackasses. Most people do not listen to them. But people have been calling people Nazis as a political slur for as long as I can remember. You know, people called George Bush a Nazi. They called Bill Clinton a Nazi. They call everybody who's a person of power, influence, or what have you a Nazi at some point or another. It's the most common insult or hurling of ridiculous hyperbole possible, and it's common. You know, people call me a Nazi for not agreeing with them on stomping Nazis or what have you. It's just hyperbolic and ridiculous, you know. And I've tried to tell people this before, like during the campaigns when people were constantly like calling Donald Trump a Nazi. And yes, I think that the Republican Party especially has some fascist tendencies, but just marginally more than the Democratic Party, really. They're both corporate warmongers, so what difference does that make? Do I think that they have fascist tendencies? Absolutely. Do I think that they're Nazis? Well, not really Nazis, no. Come on, people, let's be serious here. You can't start with Nazi, and that's why I tried to tell people during the campaign about Donald Trump. You can't start there at Nazi. If you start with Nazi, you have no place to go. If you start with Nazi, then the only place you have to go from there is Nazi, Hitler, Satan. That's it. You don't have any place to go. It doesn't leave you any wiggle room in before you. You could start with Napoleon or Nixon or any other, nefarious type character, and then just work your way up to Hitler, because the only thing left after Hitler is Satan. It's ridiculous that we are running around saying things like, I have to say things like, you shouldn't punch a Nazi. I know it's ridiculous to hear myself even say, you shouldn't run around hitting people at rallies and assaulting people at rallies because of their point of view, opinion, and no matter how repugnant and ridiculous that stupid point of view might be. I don't care. You can say whatever you want in this country, and that's one of the great things about this country, and that's what I would like to say, that I would like to remain. You could say what you want in this country, and that's important. That's more important than almost anything. If I am not going to compromise freedom of speech and impugn freedom of speech in any way, shape, or form, just to make a bunch of pseudo anti-fascists comfortable with relaying violence upon people that they disagree with. No matter how repugnant those views might be, they're entitled to those views, and you're not entitled to hit them over those views. You're not entitled to assault them over those views. I will never back off of this notion that the protection of speech is sacrosanct, and it's the most important thing that we hold. Everything. It's the one thing that we can try to hold them accountable with. It's the only thing left that we have as a power. Especially if you're a politically minded person. Somebody pointed out that, Julian Assange pointed out in a tweet that the Republican Party is in control of the presidency, both houses of the legislature, the Supreme Court. Freedom of speech is the only thing that we have to fight them. And you guys want to compromise that? You want to say that some people have the right to express certain things and some people don't? No, I'm afraid not. And that's never going to fly with any intelligent American, and people will stand in your way forever on that. I just want to let the ANTIFA folks know, and I actually have had some dealings and interactions with some people who are sympathetic to their cause and or claim to be a part of their cause. And I've tried to reach out to a lot of different perspectives and understand these issues a lot better. I even watched a clip of this professor who a lot of these people are actually following and trying to, and actually listening to his book about Antifa and the use of violence against fascism. And he's saying that there was a precedent for this working back in the 1920s and 30s, up to a point, and then fascism took control. No, it's just an excuse to find a minority group that you think people think are historically repugnant enough, and their ideas are unpopular enough that you'll be excused for exacting violence. It's just an excuse to exact violence on people who you think people will be okay with you exacting violence on. You're becoming exactly what it is that you claim that you wanted to distance yourself from, that you claim to be fighting. You're becoming as bad as the fascists that you're fighting, the polar opposite. And I don't know what the polar opposite of that is. Yeah, I know that as someone who considers himself to be a leftist, many of you folks who are calling yourselves socialists, who are part of this ANTIFA movement, are doing the socialist movement a grave injustice. And you're not helping further the causes of that movement by being violent. In fact, they're going to point to that and go, see, these guys don't know how to conduct themselves. They don't know how to be in a civilized society that moves forward, no matter what it is that you think that you're furthering by your cause with this. Curb stomping a Nazi, or punching a Nazi, or all the things that I've seen happening in this past couple weeks, in this past couple months, are not going to work. It's not going to land. Nobody is going to codify you doing this. Nobody with any real sense thinks that this is a doable way of approaching the problem. Even many, many people of color. So, to the ANTIFA people, I suggest that you just slink back into the darkness that you came from. Any of you Americans who have been partaking in this stuff, you should be contrite, introspective, and ashamed of yourselves. I hope that you take some time and understand that people will never look at you the same. Now, no one is irredeemable, but when you make yourself nearly as bad as the people you claim to be fighting against, both with your rhetoric and your actions, then you don't deserve a place you don't deserve a place at the discussion table. You don't deserve the influence that you say you crave. If you really want to do this cause, further this cause in a legitimate way, then stand aside. I'm not saying don't stand up to the Nazis. I'm not saying don't confront the Nazis and tell them that they're wrong during their rallies or what have you, but that's all you can do. That's all you can do. And that's how we win. That's how you won in Boston. 20,000 people, overwhelming, 100 people or something like that? Was it like 100 Nazis that were there to maybe come out and say something? Maybe 150 of their supporters or something like that, up against, 20,000 people who came out? Many of whom who were actually legitimately arguing against freedom of speech. Saying that, no, some people do not deserve freedom of speech. Well, no. I'm afraid that's not going to work, and that's not going to land, and we will move forward as people. We get better at this, and we will not be divided this easily. Those of you who are pairing off onto these divisions, shame on you. Get back on board. We need to move forward. If we're going to deal with institutional and cultural racism, we got to hit it where it hurts. These are all superfluous fights that are nowhere. So, that's all I've got for this cast. I'm going to sign off with that. I know it kind of stretched out a lot longer than I intended for it to. Peace and bananas, folks. And keep on swinging.